Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you're with us. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. Kent?
Yeah, today we're really pleased. We're going to have the Executive Director of Stand for Children, Amber England, join us and talk about what that organization does. It's got a wonderful purpose and it works hard to fulfill that purpose. I think you'll find Amber to be articulate, bright, and very hardworking. And we're going to be talking primarily about what the organization does and how it benefits the community and what our viewers can do to help.
Amber England with Stand for Children. We'll be right back. You're watching The Verdict.
I've known I was going to be an artist since I was a little kid. I still have teachers that in grade school that still have my artwork. I think I told them something along the lines, this is keep that, it's going to be worth money someday. I'm Justin Mader, I'm an artist, and I'm Chickasaw. My muse is the Muskogean, Mississippian art. When I see that, my mind just fills up with bubbles of ideas. My big thing right now is shell carving, the shell gorgets. My work is refined more and more until I found my own rhythm. I also do metallurgy, where I've been acid etching copper and hammering copper to make a copper repoussé. You only have one chance to do it right, so it requires a lot of planning and thought and just patience. My Chickasaw heritage is the foundation of who I am. It's the roots of where I come from, and it inspires me as an artist and inspires the tenacity of never giving up.
Learn more about today's Chickasaws at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
As we indicated in the opening segment, we're really pleased today to welcome to the set of The Verdict Amber England, the Executive Director of Stand for Children here in Oklahoma. Stand for Children is a division of Stand for Children nationally, and we're going to be talking about that with her. She did her undergraduate work in communication. She has been a journalist in southern Oklahoma. She's a longtime Oklahoman. She served on the Oklahoma State Senate staff as a staffer. She also was involved with Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, advocating for children's issues, and has joined Stand for Children, which also advocates for the children of Oklahoma. Amber, first visit, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Mayor.
Stand for Children. How did this start? How long has it been in existence?
So we'll celebrate our 25th anniversary next summer. It's a great story on how the organization started. It was the largest rally for children in the country, right on the mall of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Rosa Parks was there, and she stood up and gave an amazing speech, and she said, surely if I can sit down for justice, we can all stand for children. And from that became Stand for Children. We're in 11 states. Oklahoma office opened in January of 2013. I was hired 2 months prior to that, so kind of came in, helped start the affiliate as the Government Affairs Director first, and have been with Stand for Children ever since.
What are the goals of Stand for Children?
So our mission is to make certain that all kids, regardless of background, graduate ready and with access to college and career training. So we do that in 4 different ways. The first way is to empower parents to demand excellent schools. We also advocate for policies at the state and local level, so both at the legislative level and at the school board level. We make certain that the policies that we advocate for actually reach classrooms and help students, because you can pass laws all day long, but if you can't implement them and they don't reach the classrooms and help kids, what's the point? And then we also work to elect courageous leaders who will stand up for children.
So your headquarters is in Washington, D.C.?
No, actually Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
I see. And you're in how many states?
11 states.
I see. And you've been in Oklahoma since 2013?
Yeah, January of 2013.
Well, now
Correct.
you had involvement with children prior to the time you joined Stand for Children.
Yes. So immediately prior to being at Stand for Children, I was the policy director at the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, but was also I ran their initiative called Fit Kids Coalition. So I was the director of the Fit Kids Coalition, and got involved in your challenge through that, Mayor Cornett. So I've been advocating for children now for, I guess, around 5 years. outside of when I was at the Senate as a staffer. So it's where my heart is, it's where my passion is. Obviously, they are the future of this state, and they don't have a voice. And so if you don't stand up for children, no pun intended, then who will?
You know, so many times we'll look at data that will indicate that our children are underperforming in one way or another. And when you start looking at how you want to address it, then do you want to start at where the data is showing an improvement, or do you have to back up and say, well, you're really not going to improve this unless you start looking at some of the social issues that these kids are facing at home? In other words, there might be a language barrier, there might be a poverty situation, there might be something going on in that kid's mind. So how do you deal with that when there's so many underlying issues to these problems? How do you address the data and the indications of the poor performance?
Right. So obviously numbers tell a story, and data is very important. But I 100% believe that you have to take a holistic approach and look at the entire story of that child. And that's my unique background at the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, where we worked on a whole host of issues, health issues, early childhood, and now working specifically in K-12. What I think is important is that we all sort of break those barriers down and really look at the whole picture. But if poverty shouldn't ever be an excuse for low performance in schools, because we know that every child can learn and every child should have the right to learn. And so I think that we obviously need to look at the data, but obviously we have to know the whole story of that child. And some schools right here in Oklahoma City are doing a great job with those wraparound services, the community schools like Edgemere Elementary. And I think that that's very important. And I think that we're beginning to see other advocacy organizations understand that and come step up to the plate and help, not just look at a math score, look at a reading score, but really look at the whole picture and try to step up and help.
Well, what data is helpful? What data do you think is reflective or accurate or gives us direction?
I think that every data point is important. So if you look at kindergarten readiness, if you look at third grade reading, if you look at an 8th grade math score, there are several milestones along the way, and particularly that third grade reading, if they're reading on grade level by the end of third grade, that's a pretty good indication of how they're going to do for the remainder of their school career. You can also track absenteeism. So we're working right now with Oklahoma City Public Schools on a campaign called I Pledge 5, specifically to address chronic absenteeism in Oklahoma City Public Schools. We're also running that in Tulsa as well. And so it's a very simple campaign where we ask parents to do 5 things. Have your child show up to school on time every single day, read to your child, ask your child about their day, connect with your child's teacher. And now I've gone blank on the 5th one. But it's those simple things that a parent can do. We ask them to take a pledge, so they actually sign a pledge card and keep it, because kind of science shows that if you sign your name to something, it means a little bit more. And so they get to keep that pledge card as a reminder of the 5 things that they promise to do with their child every day. So, there are many data points that are important, but I think, looking at chronic absenteeism, third grade reading, those things are very important.
Your background in communication with the Senate staff, Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, how did that prepare you to assume your job at Stand for Children?
Well, I think the way working on a Senate staff is, I think, one of the most amazing educations anyone could ever get. You have to, it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. You have to learn about every single issue. You have to learn to compromise. I was on staff when we were in a tie, 24-24, historic in the state of Oklahoma. We got more governing done in those 2 years. I think that it was great. You had Glenn Coffey as a co-pro tem and Mike Morgan as a co-pro tem, and the 2 of them really led the Senate and really taught me a lot about leadership in terms of how to compromise and how to actually govern. And so I think that has prepared me, my time on Senate staff, working on both sides of the aisle, forging those friendships, forging those relationships, because at the end of the day, you can't make policy without relationships. And so I think that my time on Senate staff absolutely helped to prepare me for this. The communications background helps as well, but at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And so I think that that's really what prepared me.
You mentioned the third grade, eighth grade, and all those. I didn't hear you mention anything about the A through F system that we're using. Is that good, or is that bad, or is that something we should consider discarding in favor of something else?
You know, I think that parents deserve accurate information, easy to understand information about how schools are performing. I think the A through F grading system is meant to do just that. It is supposed to give parents accurate information. The problem right now is a lot of people don't trust the A through F system, including parents. And so, you know, when Florida implemented their A through F law, they went through a lot of different tweaks year after year to try to get it right. And so I think it's important that we take a look to see what is it that we can improve upon on this A through F system to make certain that parents are getting accurate and easy to understand information. We work with a group of parents on the south side of Oklahoma City. We just finished Stand University for Parents. 27 parents from Cesar Chavez Elementary graduated last night from Stand University. And we talked to them. There's an entire class on what an effective school looks like, what you should be looking for. And we talk about A through F, but we really talk about, you know, connecting with your child's principal, connecting with your child's teacher, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It's about those teachers and those strong leaders in those schools. And if a parent is talking and making connections with those people, you know, the A through F system, it may not be that important to a parent if they've made a connection with the child's teacher and the child's parent and get to know the school board members. So I think there are a variety of ways that we can look at the performance of a school, but parents do deserve accurate information.
Amber England is with Stand for Children. We'll have more from Amber when we get back.
The integrity of our air, land, and water. The energy to power our lives. They all matter.
That's why many oil and natural gas producers across Oklahoma voluntarily implement green completion methods,
Which can capture more of a well's produced gas and reduce emissions up to 90%. Cleaner air, more energy. They both matter. Learn about other ways Oklahoma producers are protecting the air at oerb.com/bothmatter.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We are visiting with Amber England. She's telling us about Stand for Children. Your organization has to have funding. Where does it come from? Is this a government-funded program, or is this privately funded?
No, we are a 501c3 organization. We also have a C4, which means a different type of tax status, but we are a nonprofit organization. We're funded by Oklahomans, you know, right here, the Kaiser Family Foundation, the Schusterman Family Foundation, the Inasmuch Foundation right here in Oklahoma City, the Zero Family Foundation. We also have individual donations from our members, parents who are part of our grassroots organization. So we're funded both individual donors and by foundations primarily.
I want to go back to something you were talking about in the first segment, the Stand University. Tell me a little bit more about that. What's its goal, and how do you accomplish it?
Sure, Stand University for Parents, we call it Stand Up. It is a 6-week program, 8 weeks from beginning to end. So we have an introductory meeting and a graduation and 6 classes, an hour long every week. We actually went door to door canvassing to find parents and get them to come to Cesar Chavez for one night to learn about Stand University. And it's a curriculum that was developed by Stand for Children, and we teach them everything from what it means to have an important and effective parent-teacher conference, all the way to how to stand up and use your voice at a school board meeting, at a state legislative committee room. So really teaching them how to advocate for their own child, but then also how to advocate for children all over the state of Oklahoma. We had graduation on last night, which would, and it was, I have to say, the most inspiring thing I've probably ever witnessed. These parents walked across the stage, got a diploma, shook the hand of Superintendent New and Associate Superintendent Aurora Laura, and their kids were coming up to them after they got off the stage, hugging them. You could just tell how proud the kids were of these parents for going through this program. And I told the parents last night, don't ever forget that, because that's going to make an impression on their child's future. I remember when my mom graduated from college. It was in December of 1987. I can remember it like it was yesterday, and it made an impression on me. And so I know that those parents that graduated last night from Stand University and those kids who watched them walk across that stage, well, it teaches them the power of education and the value of education.
I want to ask you about a different topic, but still to deal with education and children, and that's the topic of early childhood education. Tell me what relationship Stand has to early childhood, and how early is early?
Sure. Stand primarily works pre-K through 12th, those sorts of policies. However, we understand that school readiness is one of the big milestones that's important to know whether a child.
It helps for success.
Absolutely, and science is beginning to prove even earlier and earlier that it's important. So, like, birth to 3 initiatives are beginning to be very, very important in terms of reading to your child every day, talking to your child, because we know that children who grow up in poverty, their vocabulary is they have so many fewer words that they know when they come into kindergarten or pre-kindergarten as someone who doesn't grow up in poverty. And so really working and reaching out to those low-income children to give them really early learning opportunities is important, because it helps with the school readiness. And it's as simple as just talking to your child every single day, reading to your child even when they're 1 month old, 2 months old. They hear you, they begin to comprehend it, and their vocabulary will expand as that happens.
Do you have a specific legislative agenda that you're putting together right now for next session?
Yes, we do. We're working on our legislative agenda right now, and we went around the state in March of this last year, and we did 8 teacher focus groups. So 16 hours of conversations with teachers around what were the barriers they were facing, what could we improve on, how are these reforms that we've worked hard to pass, how are they working, how can they be improved upon, and what do you need to do your job? Because we know that the most effective tool in every classroom is a highly effective teacher. And so we wanted to go and hear directly from them. So a lot of our legislative agenda this year will be based on what those teachers have said is important, because we need to be listening to the people who are the front lines of education, and that's teachers. And so we'll work on the teacher leader effectiveness law to make certain that we are fairly evaluating teachers and making certain that we have the most highly effective teachers in every classroom. We'll work to ensure that we're not over-testing kids, but we're using tests that accurately measure what kids are learning. We'll work on funding issues. It's really going to be a really hard budget year. We're facing about $1 billion is what we're hearing, and so we're going to work shortfall, correct. Yeah. So we'll work very rigorously, like we did last session, to try to hold education harmless. So those are the kinds of legislative issues we'll be working on next year.
Do you have a stance on charter schools?
We're supportive. High quality charter schools are so very important. particularly in urban areas. They make a difference. They do help close the achievement gap with kids of color and children growing up in poverty. They're very effective, and we support them.
I know that Stand for Children has been one of many participants in the filing of a new initiative petition about a 1-cent sales tax to improve education.
Right.
Just in a couple of minutes, tell us what that's about.
So the initiative petition that was filed last week from the group Oklahoma's Children, Our Future, is really to address a very chronic problem in the state right now, which is the teacher shortage. We started this year with 1,000 teachers short. We're inching close to 1,000 emergency certificates to give to people who are not trained to be teachers. And that's very concerning to us. As we just said, the most highly effective tool in any classroom is a teacher. So primarily the initiative petition is to address the teacher shortage by increasing the salary of teachers, allowing districts to have differentiated pay, so those hard to fill positions like STEM teachers, special education teachers, and also performance pay. So really locally driven solutions. Also, there's funding in there to help implement many of the reforms that are so important to help kids read on grade level by 3rd grade, to increase graduation rates in the state. We fell last year in our graduation rate across the state, and to make sure that kids are ready for college and career. There is also money in there to address college affordability, also career training and access to industry certification programs through our career tech system that's so wonderful in this state.
And President Bourne's involved in that drive?
Yes, he is. He is.
Kind of the leader?
He has sort of taken the lead on this, but is actually a bipartisan group. President Hargis at OSU, Dave Lopez, former Secretary of Commerce under Governor Fallin, Phyllis Hudecki, former Education Secretary under Governor Fallin, were all at the press conference last week to launch the initiative petition. So I'm actually very excited about the growing bipartisan coalition that's working on this initiative, and I hope to see it on the ballot in November.
Well, it seems to be addressing a perceived mistake with the state legislature, because if the state legislature funded as your organization would want them to, this wouldn't be necessary. So what does the state legislature not understand? What do you wish they would take into consideration and realize that they're underfunding education?
I think that the legislature has a tough job. When they're facing $1 billion budget hole and last year's $600 million budget hole, they have to look at a budget just like any family would when they fall in tough times and say, what do we cut? And you're looking at roads, bridges, transportation, health issues, education, and it's a tough choice. And so I think that this initiative petition actually puts another option on the table and could be a real help in a year that we're facing $1 billion budget hole.
Amber England is with Stand for Children. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck.
you for having me.
You've got a lot of issues
Yes.
to
You'll stay busy.
Yep.
Stay on. All right. Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here, drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to, because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children. helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're wrapping up the show with Amber England of Stand for Children.
Yes, Amber is got a tough job. She's the executive director of Stand for Children here in Oklahoma, and an agenda that runs across many lines, both legislative and charitable, and trying to drum up public support for education at all levels. She's got a big agenda, and I'm sure she'll stay busy. She does a grand job explaining it.
Well, you know, and a lot of those funding issues are just perplexing when you step back and look at it, because you have a funding organization, the state legislature, who seems to have less than 100% confidence in those that are executing the plan that they're supposed to fund.
I think that's fair.
And so their method is then to seemingly underfund it. And then you have this this series of tax cuts, largely on personal income, and then the solution that's presented to us as voters is a tax increase in another way. And so it's just it's one end run after another. And somebody always says politics is not very pretty, and funding is not always thought with a great formula, but it's all very interesting to me. We'll be back next week with another show. Enjoyed having Amber England on this week, and we'll see you next week on The Verdict.